光に燃える闘志があるなら巨大な敵を撃てよ撃てよ撃てよ正義の怒りをぶつけろガンダム機動戦士ガンダムガンダム
The world that Zeta Gundam takes place in is somewhat alien compared to the world we left in 0083, and while it may not seem like that much of a space of time, consider how many characters were Earthnoids. Spacenoid culture was slowly distancing itself from the Earth, and this would become more obvious as Zeta Gundam went forward. Spacenoid naming conventions such as Frau Bo, Camille Bedan, or Fa Yuri would be the most clear depiction of their cultural drift, names which sound very odd to Earthnoid ears. Even names like Selah and Bright can be pointed to as examples, and it would only become more peculiar as the Universal Century dragged on. By this point, the Titans had become well established as an autonomous group. Their leader, Jamatov Hyman, was an Earth supremacist who was slowly converting the Titans into his own private army. It was becoming more and more popular for people to join the Titans as they successfully held down anti-Federation protests, but it was clear that they would grind down resistance with whatever means they pleased. The Colony 30 massacre was the best example of this. In 0085, the Titans remonstrated against Colony 30 at Side 1, which was in full revolt. Riots were springing up in protest of the Titans' actions, and the Federation proved either unable or too incompetent to quell them. In response, the Titans intervened and pumped G3 poison gas into the colony, killing the 10 million inhabitants without a second thought. It was this action that caused Blex Forer to go rogue from the Federation and install Henkin Beckener as the captain of the Argama. The Anti-Earth United Government, or AUG, had been created, and one of their first actions was to recruit a man called Quattro Bagina. When this Lieutenant Quattro first shows up in Zeta Gundam, he's piloting a dangerous machine called a Rick Diaz. This machine was created by the AUG for their frontline pilots, created with the panoramic cockpit that had been implemented first in the Gundam Alex. The machine featured a head-mounted cockpit with a set of Vulcan guns in them. On the back was mounted as standard a pair of beam pistols, the high-performance unit easily able to wield the weaponry. Its main armament was a clay bazooka that was originally designed to immobilize rather than destroy enemy suits. It was often loaded with high explosive rounds in spite of this. The technologically advanced machine stacked up extremely well against the older mobile suits that had filled the ranks of the Earth Federation and Titans since the outset of the Grips conflict. Quattro Bagina and his wingmen Apoli and Roberto were in the Grips colony to try and get new information on the mobile suit the Titans were developing, as is so often the case in the Universal Century. Eventually, they were engaged by the RMS-179 GM2, which has its own strange production history behind it. Some of the units were built from scratch, their model numbers listed as RMS-179. The RGM-79R is the designation given to the GM-1 units from the one-year war that had been refitted with better generators, sensors, and acceleration, building off units like the GM Command. The GM-2 was not a significant upgrade, but rather more symbolic of what the Federation thought its enemies were capable of fielding. As it stood, the GM-2 was more akin to a P-51 Mustang fighting an F-16 once the Grips conflict began. If the GM-2 was a Mustang, then the Hyzak, the other machine used heavily by the Titans at the outset of this war, was a Sopwith Camel with a really big gun on it. The Hyzak, easily produced by Anaheim after it absorbed Zionic and Zimad, had major problems mounting beam weaponry. While the GM-2 could easily handle a beam rifle and saber, most Hyzak pilots had to choose one or the other in most cases. While the Hyzak was easy to control and repair and was relatively agile, it was always outclassed by the AUG pilots. For this reason, it was replaced as soon as a viable replacement could be found. The last we'd see of the Hyzak would be as the Hobby Hyzak in 0093, a brightly colored machine that was clearly only for enthusiasts. The last machine was the impressive but still inadequate RMS-117 Garibaldi Beta. The machine was an upgrade of the Garibaldi Alpha, a peculiar fusion of the Gion and Gelgoog that saw production in supplemental materials but never in animation. Official records state that it saw little combat, but since the plans fell into the Federation's hands, they started plans to upgrade it. In doing so, they upgraded the generator and thrusters, and modified the armor to look more in line with current mobile suit standards. It outperformed the Gelgoog well enough, and sat in the ranks of the Hyzak and the GM-2. This is what passed for a high-performance mobile suit to the Titan, as the AUG was still only able to field stolen units or limited Rick Dias machines. The Garibaldi mounted beam weaponry admirably, and its shield had a small missile launcher on it for anti-mobile suit combat. All 3 units were first deployed in July 0084, and the Titans had hold of them until 0087. While Lieutenant Quattro was battling, the ace pilot briefly came into contact with someone that reminded him of Amuro Ray. The new type sensation would only grow stronger as the two came into closer contact. Next time, we'll meet the heir to the stars, Camille Bedan, and see the tragic course his life takes once he comes into contact with the RX-178 Gundam Mark II.